some of the questions which I have on my list point to the more elevated states of consciousness, the higher dimensional levels. And it says in your books you describe some amazing qualities of the flowers and vegetation and the colors of things which you have tried to capture in some of your pictures. Can you tell us more about it? Yes. This is an incredible thing, because we have to bear in mind that the higher the dimension, the higher we progress through the dimensions, the closer we get to the core creative energy, and the more abundant life becomes, and the more the greater, the more prosperous or versatile. For example, there's only what we see here on the physical planet is only a small copy of what is there. It's only a very small amount of the creation makes it down into the physical level. What we experience on the higher dimensional level is an incredible, profound vegetation, fauna and flora, and exists in such an abundance that it's almost impossible to describe. On top of that, we have got different regions, like different planets, whereas on the physical level, these planets are uninhabitable. They are either too hot or too cold, and they don't have any atmosphere and so on. On the higher dimensional levels, we can visit these planets and we find a completely unique environment which has no equivalent anywhere in the universe. So we find life becomes much more abundant the higher we rise through the dimensions. And then we see flowers, vegetation, of which we simply have no equivalent here. There can be plants which are luminous. I went through a forest and I saw plants which were glowing and gave on musical sounds and gave out a certain type of energy which we can access when we are on these higher levels. The same way as we can access energy from trees. If we go down here on the physical level and we look at trees or plants and we pick certain herbs, and they have got a certain energy which can be a healing energy, and we can then benefit from these energies. And on the higher dimensional levels, there's exactly the same. Each plant species have their own unique signature, and I think it would take centuries to catalogue and to write a book about it. And so I just like to say the same thing also applies to creatures, to animals. And that was another question here. What has been your experience with animals, both domestic and wild, on the astral level? Now that's a really interesting thing, because I've seen animals which have no counterpart on the physical level, and some animals were almost like mythical creatures, lions with wings, and incredible, beautiful butterflies, much bigger than we will find them on Earth. The other thing is, of course, what is the most amazing thing is I find that animals are intelligent. You can speak to them, you can talk to them, they give you intelligent answers. They are wise beyond our conception, because people who have got pets, we very often treat our pets like human beings, and there's a good reason for it, because I always look at pets like our cat. I look at them as people in a fur coat, because when we go to the astral plane, we can actually talk to these animals, to our pets, which we already do here instinctively, and we relate to them, and we have got a real personal relationship, and our animals do understand us. They on a level which we can't even fully grasp. I noticed on the astral level, the intelligence of these creatures is incredible. There's a true wisdom they have, which we don't even come anywhere close. And that's why I think it's so very important that we respect the animals who are here, because they all have a soul, they all have an existence. And sometimes my heart breaks when I see what we do to these animals, how we use them and abuse them. For example, pigs, they're kept in small confinements simply to be bred as food, and it's horrendous. And I think our awareness will have to expand, and we have to become, sooner or later, we have to accept that we're dealing with intelligent life, and that we cannot afford to mistreat these creatures here. Once we get onto the astral level, we realize we can talk to them, we can communicate them. They have got an independent life, and they have a great contribution to make to our life here. And I just like to make this point, because it's really important that our whole attitude changes. One thing which has also become increasingly clear, especially when I went to the higher dimensional level, that nothing exists in the universe that is not intelligent. Every atom, every cell in our body is pure intelligence at the baseline of it. And if we look at it and consider the implication, what it means, we live in an intelligent, breathing universe. And if we develop the right attitude towards it, we can accomplish amazing things. This attitude has got totally lost in our Western materialist society, where we make a distinction between us and the outside world. We see the outside world we live in as separated from us, which it isn't. We are one of it. We are one with it. And that's why, for example, some ethnic cultures, some old cultures, like in Australia or in the Amazon rainforest, they've got a completely different relationship to it. And for example, when I went to Greece, I went with a friend of mine who came from Tanzania. I met him through meditation, and we went on this journey together, and he was very, very tuned in to the environment. His ancestors were from a Maasai warrior tribe, and he was an incredibly intuitive person, and it was a real experience spending 10 days with him on this, what we refer to as a pilgrimage, where we ended up in Mount Athos. And he would stop the car, and we would get out, and we look at a mountain, and he would go up to the mountain, and he would tell me, this mountain is alive, the mountain talks. And indeed, the mountain we stopped was actually, in ancient Greece, was a holy mountain, which was near the Oracle of Delphi. And so once he told me about it, I could feel the energy. I could feel that the mountain had a personality. And around this mountain was a system of intelligence, which had an influence on the people, and also an influence on the animals that lived there. And it also had an influence on the microclimate in the area. So the whole thing is a whole universe. Everything we live in, every environment, is intelligence. And when I went to the higher states, I could see this intelligence in everything, and there was no separation anymore. So this is with regard to animals and flowers. We have to look at these things from a point of view that every life form is imbued with an incredible original intelligence. So yes, now the closer we get to the core state of life, the higher states of consciousness, we can see the structure of life. We can see the plants. We can see the plants in their fractal configuration, how they came into being. We can see how the energies came together. Even the mathematical basis for it, which is expressed in incredible complex geometric shapes. So we get, on a higher dimensional level, we get very complex geometric shapes which create these plants, and they are fantastically complex and beautiful to behold. When we get into the higher states beyond the astral level, we get into a rich environment which is creation at its beginning, and we encounter a beauty which is almost impossible to describe. I spent time there where I got lost, really, because it was so complex and so infinite, and you could, at every bend, you went into a completely new and different world. And the only way to find your way out of it is to remember your core identity, which is basically love. And that brings you back to yourself, which is a state of clarity. And unless you're sort of connected to this state of clarity to yourself, you can easily get lost in these worlds and never find your way out of it, because they're so infinite and so abundant. So these are the two things, and as we get closer to the physical realm, we find the complexity of life diminishes a bit. But even on the medium astral levels, we are overwhelmed by beautiful manifestations which have no equivalent on this planet Earth. And the thing I would say, I would even say most of us will, once we die, will gravitate towards these medium to higher astral levels, especially if we have embarked on a path of what I call sort of psychological hygiene, where we develop aspects of our personality which is more concerned with other people, with the well-being around us, and develop these positive attitudes of love, and this will serve us really well when we pass on to the next level. And therefore I would say we should lead a life every day on the basis of appreciation, on the basis of gratitude. These positive feelings which come from the heart should become our status quo, our normal modus operandi on which we live, and any emotions which come, we should just accept them, and any negative feelings, we should just accept them and accommodate them, and then look at all the things we experience from this natural state of appreciation.